Ukraine Matters Update. Ukraine is expanding its bridgehead around Kupyansk and other areas in the Kharkiv region. Russia does not have enough forces there to hold the territory. In Luhansk, Russia has crossed the railway line and reached the outskirts of Svatov. However, Ukraine still holds the key town of Kreminna. In Donetsk, Russia is attacking near Bakhmut and trying to advance on Siversk. However, Ukraine is putting up stiff resistance. Ukraine seems to be adopting a strategic defensive approach for now, preserving forces and waiting for more Western weapons before launching counteroffensives. Russia is suffering heavy losses in its attacks for minimal gains of territory. Ukraine believes Russia is being politically motivated rather than military reasoned in its attacks. Ukraine has sufficient artillery ammunition and supplies in many areas thanks to Western aid. More aid has been pledged long-term. Fighter jets will arrive late winter or spring, but in limited numbers at first, to be used for specialized tasks. More planes over time will allow broader use supporting troops. Reporting from Ukraine Update. Russian forces conducted significant attacks between Mykhilsky and Novomykhailivka to eliminate the Ukrainian bridgehead. The attacks targeted these areas because the Ukrainian positions are on tactical heights that are difficult to attack directly, and the fields are densely mined without good Russian maps. In the first attack near Mykhilsky, the Russian assault unit was detected early and destroyed by Ukrainian forces, losing at least 18 tanks and armored vehicles. In the second attack near Mykhilsky 2 days later, the Russians were again detected and destroyed before reaching Ukrainian positions. Near Novomykhailivka, the Russians advanced along a gully to get close to the road and slice off the bridgehead from the north. The assault unit near Novomykhailivka was detected by a Ukrainian drone operator and immobilized by mines before being shelled, with 4 vehicles destroyed. In total, the Russian attacks failed to change the frontline positions and they lost up to 40 vehicles. The Ukrainian 72nd Mechanized Brigade prevented the Russians from making gains by controlling the air and ground. The United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense latest intelligence update on Ukraine, November 13, 2023. In September 2023, Russian media outlet Vertska reported up to 15% of Russian soldiers in Ukraine were using drugs like amphetamines and cannabis. These reports are credible and follow previous reports of high rates of alcohol abuse and related disciplinary issues among Russian forces. Russian commanders are likely punishing drug and alcohol abusers by assigning them to Storm Z assault units, which have become penal units. A core driver of poor discipline and substance abuse is the lack of opportunity for Russian combat troops to rotate away from the front line. The Institute for the Study of War Russian Offensive Campaign Assessment. Russian state media initially reported that Russian forces were regrouping from the southern bank of Kherson to positions further east of the Dnipro River, but then retracted those reports. The conflicting reports suggest confusion and lack of coordination within Russian state media command regarding the situation in Kherson. The Russian Ministry of Defense denied reports of a regrouping as false. Kremlin spokesperson Peskov said only the Russian military should comment on Kherson. The reports came amid ongoing Ukrainian ground operations on the southern bank of Kherson Oblast. Initial Russian media reports claimed the regrouping was to move forces to more advantageous positions and enable offensive operations elsewhere. The conflicting Russian reports likely indicate the difficulty Russia faces responding to Ukrainian counteroffensives in Kherson. The Institute for the Study of War Key Takeaways today. Conflicting Russian media reports on Kherson regrouping could indicate actual military discussions prematurely leaked, an information operation, or disinformation from an outside source. The Russian reaction shows events in Kherson are still sensitive, and Russia lacks a unified media narrative. Weather is impacting but not halting military operations on both sides. Ukraine may target Russian supply lines this winter. A Russian military blogger called for amplifying reports of Russian strikes on Ukrainian military rather than civilian sites. 100 civilian ships have now transited the Black Sea grain corridor despite Russian deterrence efforts. Wagner personnel are reportedly rejecting recruitment into the Russian military. Russia continued offensive operations along several fronts, gaining ground in some areas. Ukraine continues to report on Russia forcibly mobilizing Ukrainians in occupied areas. Russia persists in deporting Ukrainian children to Russia. Ukraine's Armed Forces General Staff Update. Day 628 of Russia's attempted full-scale invasion of Ukraine continues. 50 combat engagements occurred during the day. Russia launched 2 missile strikes, 32 airstrikes, 23 multiple launch rocket system attacks against Ukrainian positions and settlements, resulting in civilian casualties. The situation remains active in eastern and southern Ukraine. Russia maintains military presence along the border. Artillery and mortar strikes continued against various settlements in northern Ukraine. Russia conducted failed assault operations in the Kupyansk, Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Marinka, Shakhtarsky, and Zaporizhzhia regions. Ukraine repelled multiple attacks in each area. Russia launched air and artillery strikes across southern and eastern Ukraine. Over 10 settlements were struck in most regions. Ukraine continues offensive operations in the Melitopol and Bakhmut regions, inflicting losses on Russian forces. Ukraine's forces conducted airstrikes, missile strikes, and artillery strikes against Russian troop concentrations, equipment, command posts, air defenses, and other targets.